G'day everybody, Nick here from Super Cheap CPAP, and today I'm going to be giving you a little bit of an introduction into positive airway pressure therapy, which is used to treat sleep apnea, snoring, sleep disordered breathing, where there's a restriction in our upper airway which is causing disturbed sleep. In particular, I'm going to talk about a few of the varieties of the therapy. So there's a few different modes of therapy, and just the differences between the therapies so that you have a bit of an understanding about when you go to actually choose a machine to buy or maybe to hire, you have an idea about what the actual machine's doing and the type of therapy that it is. So I'm sure you probably all know by now that with sleep apnea, there's a restriction in the airway. So overnight time, your breathing becomes very restricted. So there's not a lot of oxygen flow through to the body, which causes a lot of health issues if it's not treated, but also causes disturbed sleep, very fragmented sleep, and so people get very tired during the day and they don't have a lot of energy. And they tend to put more weight on, it slows the metabolism, they get up to go to the bathroom more during the night, and they're very restless, okay, because they never get into a deep stage of sleep. Now, to treat that, we use what we call positive airway pressure therapy, and it's basically very similar to blowing up a balloon. Okay, so if you think of your airway as a balloon, overnight time without the positive airway pressure, the balloon gets quite deflated, and so the point where sometimes the walls of the balloon actually touch together and limits the amount of air that can come in. If we provide pressure, you can see that obviously the walls of the balloon or the walls of your airway come apart, and so it holds the airway in a very stable position, and that allows your body to do what it naturally would do, which is just your chest to expand and contract and the air to flow in and out. And if that's the case and we've got nice high blood oxygen levels, we get a good night's sleep. The body can go through the sleep cycle and rest and recover and do what it's supposed to do. So positive airway pressure is simply that. It's basically just pressurizing the airway. It's pushing air in, and because the machine, the tubing, and your airway is completely sealed, when we bring air in through the back of that machine and push it into our body, it opens up everything, and so there's no more restriction in the airway. And by doing that, we remove all the snoring and we get rid of most of the apnea, well, as much as possible, and the body does what it's supposed to do, which is sleep well. And normally when people start positive airway pressure therapy or PAP therapy, once they get into the swing of it and get used to it, they normally find that they sleep better, they stop snoring, and they have a lot more energy during the day. But as a consequence as well, their health over the long term is going to be a lot better as well. They'll tend to find that they get up less during the night, they're less restless, they can concentrate better at work, their memory is better, general mood and well-being is better, and also, like I said, if they've got high blood pressure, diabetes, all these things tend to improve as well. So there's a few different methods to deliver this positive airway pressure. The first one I'm going to talk about is continuous, okay, or fixed pressure. And that's what the C stands for in CPAP. It's continuous positive airway pressure. And that means the machine's continuously delivering a fixed rate of pressure. Now, the machines have a range of pressures that they can deliver. And when we're talking about CPAP, that's generally between 3 and 4, or around that as the bottom, and 20 is the max that they go up to. Some machines go up a little bit higher, and you can change altitudes and things like that to make them go a bit higher, but that's generally where we're talking at, between sort of 4 and 20. And somewhere within that range of pressures, they measure it in Australia as centimeters H2O, centimeters of water. That's the sort of just the pressure, general pressure level. But somewhere between that range is an optimal level that we can deliver that will keep your airway nice and stable through your sleep cycle and through whether you're on your back or your side. So everybody is different. Some people might be at the low end of the spectrum at sort of 4, 5, 6 level. Sometimes people are up the upper end of the spectrum, up at the sort of 18, 19, 20 level. Okay, and sometimes people, when they hit 20, still aren't completely controlled. But majority of people are sort of in between in that area. Now, with that therapy, it's fixed to a set level, and generally what we have is what we call a ramp period in the beginning, So we generally ramp up, depending on where that level is, we ramp the pressure up gradually over a set amount of time, which you can alter. Generally, sort of a good time frame is 20 to 30. Maybe, if it takes you longer to fall asleep, you could put it up to sort of 45. But that's sort of the general time frame. And the pressure gradually goes up automatically until it hits a set rate of pressure. And once it hits that set rate of pressure, it will then stay at that set level. Now, with that continuous positive airway pressure, the set level, over time, you might need to actually change that level, because as we get older, generally we need more pressure. But however, sometimes we might lose weight or something like that, and we might be able to have less pressure. But it's not a quick moving thing generally. It's generally a slow moving thing. It's not like one year you're at 6 and then the next year you're at 12. It's normally just little alterations. And the machines are quite sophisticated these days, where some of them actually have mechanisms in them where we can set a set pressure, say at 10, and the machine itself will continue to monitor you, and it can make fine adjustments if it needs to over the years. One example of that is the Philips machine, which has a system in it called C-check, and I can set that pressure up to say 10, and the machine has the capacity to go up by 2 or down by 2 levels of pressure, depending on what's required. So one thing about continuous positive airway pressure, or CPAP, is that the level that we set it at has to be high enough to control your sleep apnea when it's at its worst during the night. And because of that, it sort of has to be generally at a sort of higher rate than what you'd get if you have an automatic machine, which I'll talk about in a minute, which gives you more of an average pressure. All right, so that's probably one of the downsides of CPAP, is that we have to fix it at when you're at your worst through the night. So there are probably periods in the night where you don't need that amount of pressure, but because it's set to a set level, you will always get that pressure level. The good thing about it is that because it's set at that level, when you're at your worst, it means that your airway is basically always open. The apnea doesn't really have a chance to ever happen, because we're always at that higher rate. Whereas with the variable pressure, which I'll talk about in a minute, sometimes if the apnea happens quite quickly, it can take a little while for the machine to actually adjust the pressure upwards, so you can actually get a higher apnea-hypopnea index, which is how they determine how much sleep apnea you're having during the night. So you have your positive, your CPAP pressure, which is your continuous at the one set level. These machines are a bit more basic, and they're cheaper. So that's a big advantage of them. They cost generally far less than your automatic variable pressure machines. So that's one good thing. And also, being set to a set rate of pressure, sometimes people find that that's actually quite good. They know exactly how much pressure they're breathing against, so they can get into a nice even breathing routine. Their body adapts to that pressure generally quite well, because every night it's breathing against that pressure. So it's kind of like doing workout for your lungs. They just generally your breathing just sort of adapts to that pressure. Now, with the sorry, I'm going to get an interruption here. I'm just doing a little video. All right, be 5 minutes. 5 minutes. The other type of therapy, which is a bit more tailored, if you will, is what we call automatic machines or variable pressure machines. And with these machines, we don't have a fixed set pressure. The machine actually varies the pressure throughout the night, based on how the patient is breathing. So in this scenario, the machine's actually monitoring the patient, it's monitoring their breathing, and all this information is getting fed through to the computer, which analyzes the flow, and then it uses basically an algorithm to determine what the actual pressure should be based on that breathing profile. So if a patient is stopping breathing or snoring, the machine can pick that up and it will adjust the pressure upwards. It keeps checking as it goes up. They generally sort of go up minute by minute sort of thing, and then once it's happy where it's the breathing's stable, it will then keep monitoring that, and it will gradually also try and come down. So the machines sort of end up with a bit of a sort of up and down sort of pattern throughout the night. And they go between a range, and you can set that range. You have a min pressure and a max pressure, and whatever you set that range to, whether it might be 5 and 10, the machine can go between that range between 5 and 10 throughout the night. These machines are quite handy in the fact that the therapy is very tailored, so that it if over time you need more pressure, the machine can go up as far as it needs to, or vice versa, it can come down as far as it needs to. The other good thing about it is, because it's not set to a set rate of pressure, we get an average pressure, which is the pressure averaged out throughout the whole night. And the average pressure is generally lower than what you'd be if you were going to set a fixed pressure. Okay, so lower average pressure compared to your set pressure rate is beneficial, because most of the time, the lower the pressure, the easier the therapy is to use. So we can wear our mask looser. It's easy to breathe and exhale against that pressure. There's just a whole stack of reasons why lower pressure generally is a bit nicer to use. And so I think most people prefer automatic CPAP therapy versus your fixed pressure therapy for that reason. A disadvantage of it is that sometimes you can get higher apnea-hypopnea index with the automatic machines, especially if the apnea is quite severe in certain stages or positions of sleep. For example, you might be on your side where you need quite a low level of pressure to control your breathing, but you might be very severe when you're on your back. And if you roll onto your back, the machine might take a little while automatically to actually tick up to control that apnea. So you have all these events, these apneas during the time that it takes to actually get up there, which can sort of skew the apnea-hypopnea index higher. Whereas if you're on the continuous level of pressure, the pressure's already there. Okay, doesn't have to go up, so it's already set to that level, and that way you don't get that apnea. If you do have an automatic machine, you can also change the mode of it to be in fixed pressure, so you have the availability of that. So you can trial sort of automatic, or you can see how you go with fixed or CPAP. But if you get a CPAP machine, a fixed level one, they don't have that option of trialing the automatic function there. So I guess the end note is that when it comes to the types of therapy, both are very, very good, okay? And they're both going to do what we want, which is to treat the sleep apnea and give us a good night's sleep. Some of the things to think about when you're going to get a machine and thinking about what mode of therapy to choose is, if you've been diagnosed with quite severe sleep apnea, or you've done a trial of CPAP and it's quite high, so sort of up above 15, and you're finding it very difficult with that set rate being so high, you might benefit from an automatic, because you'll generally find that it will sit at a lower average pressure, which might make the therapy more enjoyable to use. And you've got to remember that you're going to be wearing it most nights of your life, so you want to make sure that you're comfortable. So if paying a few extra $100 to get a comfortable sleep every night versus fighting against that higher fixed rate, I think it's well worth it over the long run. And you've got to remember that the machines tend to last a long, long time. Most of them are very, very reliable, and most people will actually upgrade a machine before their old machines actually died. So I think it's worth it. However, if you've been, if you have a set pressure, if you've been to the hospital and they've done a titration, and say it's 6 or 4 or 5, there's probably no real benefit of getting an automatic machine, because it's such a low level of pressure. There's no real range for the automatic algorithm to work. So you'd be better off probably getting a fixed pressure machine. You're going to save yourself a fair bit of money, and at the same time you're still going to get really good therapy. Another good thing to probably think about is I guess whether or not you have the time and availability to go and get your pressure changed if you're getting a CPAP machine. Go and get the downloads and do that. If you're technically savvy, you can probably learn to do it yourself. It's not too complex. But if you're going to get a CPAP machine, you're probably going to need to get your machine adjusted over time, which takes time, takes effort. So if you're one of those people that are busy lifestyle, don't really want to worry about all that stuff, just grab yourself an automatic, and then the machine will self-adjust no matter what happens in your life. As you get older, it will just do its thing as it needs to. If you don't know what your pressure is, and you don't want to go to all the hassle of going and having a sleep study in the hospital to determine your CPAP pressure and things like that, you can grab an automatic machine which will self-adjust the pressure, so you don't actually need to really know what your pressure is. The machine can just have a look and work that out. And if you look at the data, which most machines have these days, nearly all of them, you can actually use some of the data figures, one in particular called the P90, and that gives you an idea of what you'd need to be, what pressure your pressure would need to be at if you were going to get a set pressure machine or a fixed pressure machine. So that's an option as well. You could do an automatic trial, use an automatic machine for a month, and then download the data. If you wanted to trial fixed pressure CPAP, you could look at that P90 value, set the CPAP to that pressure, and just set a ramp, and away you go. So with your automatic machines, the prices vary, generally between 1,000 to 1,600. Is a decent range with humidifier and mask. If you're going CPAP therapy, it's generally sort of between maybe 600 to 1,300. So you can actually get some very affordable CPAP therapy, and you can also get some quite affordable automatic CPAP therapy as well. So I hope that sort of gives you an understanding of the two different styles of therapy. You know, if I was personally going to get one myself, I would probably get an automatic machine, and then I'd fine-tune the upper and lower limits to suit my needs. And we've got some videos in our blog based on how to use the data to fine-tune your upper and lower limits so that you can get the best out of that therapy. But that's it for today. I hope you appreciate all the videos. Please like them, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Check out our website, supercheapcpap.com.au. Sign up for the newsletter where you'll get great discount codes and special special offers on a great range of CPAP equipment. I hope you're enjoying your weekend. It's Labor Day weekend here in Melbourne, Australia. I think it is around Australia. I'm not 100% sure on that. But looking forward to a nice day off tomorrow, like I'm sure many of you are. Best of luck for your CPAP therapy, and all the best. Cheers.